Hello everyone, how you guys doing? Hopefully you guys are having a wonderful day, and today we're here with another PWCC weekly review where I go through the top 100 soccer card items for the week on the PWCC platform. We talk through the highs and the lows and what's going on. Hopefully you enjoy. Of course, if you do, make sure to leave a like. Lets me know that you like the video, and I'll keep making them. But with that said, let's go ahead and get on into it. This week, I'll try to make it a bit faster since it is 4th of July week. But I say that every week, and I don't usually make it that much faster. But we'll try. Starting off with a 1960 shoot. This is the same picture as a Heinerley. Pretty iconic photo of Puskás. Going for 120 in a PSA 4 Pop 1-1, just one higher, at least for PSA grading. Then we have a 1953 Gento here. This is the same chocolate sticker that you saw last week if you watched the video. We had Di Stefano in there. 2019 Holland, Topps Finest, going for 126. Then above that, a kind of an odd end. 2010 Topps England Cristiano Ronaldo, PSA 10 now. Did notice some weird sales for PSA 10, so we might talk about them as we get there. PSA 4 of the Puskás going. I think we saw this go last week as well. I don't think it's the same one. Surfboard slab in case you want to head out and catch some waves. Beyond that, we have Lionel Messi 2020 PSA 10. I mean, these are pretty abundant. I wouldn't pay much for PSA 10s, but people do typically because, 10s are alluring, so that one gets bought there. Above that, we have PSA 9 Messi going for 132 from the 2005 Panini Champions of Europe set. A fun set, but one that you can definitely find a good bit of. So PSA 9 isn't terribly hard. There are still sealed boxes out there. At least whenever I looked, there was a lot on eBay. I'm not sure if that's the case now, but I'd imagine still. We have a Thuram here from 1992 going for 132 in a PSA 9, Pop 107, none higher. So pretty hard one to get there. Also the same set as the Zidane that people do enjoy, so notable in that regard. Then we have a 1974 World Cup of Johan Cruyff going for 138, Pop 104, 8 graded higher, so not necessarily the rarest, but also really nice looking Cruyff. Then we have a 69 George Best Pop 101, none higher, going for 140, along with a Pele rookie. I mean, pretty cheap for a Pele rookie. Obviously, it's sort of more of an action shot with Pele, so it has that going against it. I guess it is a 1 as well, so it's about as entry as you're going to get, but still a Pele rookie for 138. Beckenbauer auto's been going down a little bit, I would say, but I mean, when there's an abundance and it seems like every week there's 1 or 2 going, makes sense. This is only a BGS 6, so going for 144. We had this same card go last week. I think this one sold a bit lower, but that's sort of been the trend they're on. Speaking of continuing the trend they're on, Kylian Mbappe base has trickled down continuously. I looked up the graph for this, didn't really care to show you guys because I mean it's basically been the same thing. Down probably 25-50% over the last 6 months to a year, depending on which time frame you want to look at. So it still just continues to drop on down. I mean, realistically, base cards are just difficult in the sense that if you can get 150, or people were getting 300, 400, 500, typically if you can get decent money out of a base card and maybe put it into something better, I almost always think that's a good play. And I'm sure as people learn more about soccer, they see that, and that's been what's happening. Now at some point you'd imagine there's a bottoming out, but we haven't reached that yet. Messi checkerboard here, going for 150. Above that, we have a 1959 Heinerley team photo with Pele in it, going for 150 as well. Kylian Mbappe 2022 gold. We have a Philipp Lahm PSA 9 going for 156. Pop 106, 3 higher. Underrated legend, but not to say underpriced. I think, in terms of people talking about him, basically hear nothing, but that also then sort of correlates with why he might be properly priced, or maybe over or underpriced. It's all sort of a thing that you have to sort through yourself. Definitely an evolving landscape, so it is what it is. 2002 Panini Foot. This is the foil PSA 9 Ronaldinho going for 156. I feel like that's not too strong at all. I remember seeing sales that were a bit better for even probably lower grade, but I mean, that's the case with a lot of soccer. 1978 Hugo Sanchez going for 168 in a PSA 7. That also doesn't seem anything crazy to me. I mean, that's at least in my mind, people throw around the word iconic, and I get it, but when it comes to like World Cup stickers that you think of, I mean, 1978, that's basically the one for that World Cup. Obviously, there are more and other notable players in there, but that's the one that comes to mind for me, so I think that means something. PSA 7, not the best grade, I'd imagine, but also not anything to scoff at. I mean, we'll see some really high Maradona sales here in a bit. We then have a few odd and ends in this row. A Rivera here, an SGC 6 going for 160. We have a Cannavaro. There will be a better Cannavaro here in a bit. This is 1994. We'll see a Euro Flash later. 2021 Cristiano Ronaldo out of 5 going for 180. I feel like we saw this sell maybe a couple weeks or a month ago, so I'm not sure if that's rerunning. Then in this row, we have a Holland slab with what seems to be a major gash across the front of it. PSA 10 Ronaldinho going for 190-ish, which is a decent sale. Again, I talk about almost any time I see these, but PSA 10, typically the stars seem to go for anywhere from 100 to 250, at least for the best of the best names from that set, so that's still in the range. Another Beckenbauer auto. We have a Cristiano Ronaldo foil. We saw this last week as well, so don't want to take a peek at it necessarily. This I thought was interesting. This is a weird one. Baggio stuff in general hasn't been doing really well. I think most of that's just because Baggio has so many different items that you could go for. You know, you see with like Maradona, he barely gets any love, and that's Maradona because he has 4 or 5 different rookie material type items. And, you know, Baggio is sort of in that same realm, but with a lesser player, right? And so the Addis here, I don't really like that they say error on here. I don't know if the slab says error. Yeah, the slab says error. I mean, it has the name of the other person that's supposed to be on the panel with him on his name, but they all come like that. It's not like there are ones with, you know, a proper name, at least as far as I'm aware. So error comes off a little weird. It seems like it's almost an error version, which isn't the case. Nonetheless, this didn't sell very high, but comparatively to the last sale, basically in line. This BGS 5 goes for 100. This SGC 6 goes for close to 200. Honestly, seems cheap on the SGC side because people hate BGS at this point. But a PSA 6 did do on the same day 425 on best offer, so that's pretty interesting. I also thought that this PSA 6 looked really weird. It was sold on eBay, so maybe it's just the scanner, but my lord, that looks terrible. I don't know what it is. When you look at, say, like right there next to it, I mean, you can just visibly tell without me even enlarging it. I mean, the colors on them are wildly different, so little scary. I guess it was a PSA 6, so, you know, if someone's going to fake something, why a 6? But, yeah, I mean, definitely down. If we go all the way back, that will be down a massive amount. But for Baggio, you know, I think 200, it's definitely still a cool sticker, and I like it a lot. We have a Trezeguet PSA 9 from 1997 here. A rookie going for 200. Christian Pulisic rookie, there we go. So we have a multicolor PSA 10 here. I think this is a pretty decent price. At least for me. I've seen a silver go for less than this. However, it was probably the lowest a silver's ever sold for a few months, probably about 6 or 7 months back during the World Cup when a lot of things were being sold. So comparatively to that, you know, it makes me think that these are up, but I did look back and I think they peaked at near 1,000. So obviously definitely down a lot, like most things. But for Pulisic, you know, just sort of random card, I don't think that's bad at all. Red Refractor Ronaldo here out of 10 from 2020 Topps Chrome going for 216. Then we have an Optic Green Velocity Phil Foden going for 216 in a PSA 9 numbered out of 200. Michael Owen Flawless going for 216. Doesn't seem too crazy. Obviously, I mean, Michael Owen isn't, you know, a premier name, but definitely a name nonetheless. 2015 Panini Select White Jersey Blue Prism Cristiano Ronaldo going for 216. Felt that was pretty decent. I mean, just for a 10 Ronaldo numbered out of almost 300, that's not bad at all. Wanted to give a peek at this one. We don't see it too often. That's the Sadio Mane 2012 Foosball. Went for 216 here, so wanted to give a peek and see what it did in the past. Honestly, this is a sticker that isn't even on my radar when it comes to pre-modern. Maybe it should be, just because I guess when you compare Salah and Mane, which was always sort of the comparison, at least this one's more of a fun rookie sticker. Salah's not so much more plentiful, but this one actually hasn't sold too much. First sale back in November of 2021 says 500. This one at 216, but the last sale before it was 500. So relatively, it was pretty stagnant for a player that honestly didn't have much hype, and maybe that was why it was stagnant, just because no one's really talking about him. So there's not an influx and you know, a dispersal of people in a row, so that makes sense. And 216 could be a decent price if you are into Sadio Mane, definitely the lowest we've seen so far. So 1998 Thierry Henry, this is the Superfoot. Cool looking sticker, pop 1 of 1, none higher, at least for the moment. We have a 1969 Cruyff and Eusebio PSA 4. Don't think I've ever seen this. This is a promo, it says, and it's graded relatively recently, so maybe this is something that's newer graded by PSA, and, you know, I would look more into that if you're interested. Above that, another Cruyff, PSA 3 for the Vanderhout going for $270. Not a strong price, but not, I guess, a disastrous price either. Everyone sort of knows what's gone on with the Cruyffs, at least the Vanderhouts, and it's sort of been its whole story in and of itself. Marco van Basten, 1988 Euro, very important Euro for him. PSA 8 goes for 300 there, which isn't anything too crazy, but pop 1 of 2, none higher, at least for the moment. Euro stickers seem to never really have much of a shine, I would say. I know tons and tons of World Cup stickers, but when it comes to Euro stickers, there are very few that ever really stick out, and that's definitely one. We have a Romario here, a 1991-92 Merlin Shooting Stars in a PSA 9 going for $312. And then this row is a lot of things that we see quite often, I would say. Leaf Holland autos we see all the time. DeStefano Termos, not always in a PSA 6, usually lower grade, but still decent sale there, $350. Those are down a good bit from the high, but what isn't? Alejandro Garnacho, rookie out of 25 from the Premier League Select, going for a decent penny there, raw. The row above that, another DeStefano. Here we have a PSA 10 Cristiano Ronaldo from the same set as we saw a PSA 9 Messi. The 9 Messi went for about $150, and the 10 Ronaldo goes for $400, so a decent jump up there. I'm going to take a peek further. This goes for $400. Last one was fixed price for $300, so big jump from that one. And before that, these sold for $168, $140, $180, $280, or $230. Now, if I go further back, it will get much higher. You'll see that there was definitely one selling for $500 to $600. Sort of during the peak, and maybe as high as $1,000 to $2,000 for a couple sales. But realistically, this is pretty impressive. I mean, I will say sort of a pretty common sticker, but an early PSA 10 for Ronaldo. Got as low as $140 and now is up to $400. I mean, that's sort of a huge, push, and no one really talks about these sorts of cards. That's something that I feel like we in the market have a bias for. And that's sort of talking about the same cards consistently. We only focus on a few of them, and whatever those few are doing, we extrapolate it to everything, and it's not always the case. Especially, I mean, for that Ronaldo, most people would think anything Ronaldo's tanking, that one's up quite a bit. 2017 Select Field Level Silver Prism Mbappe going for $410. Looked at this, last one went for $430, so not that bad. Relatively, this is actually, I mean, for the last year, it's basically stayed near the same price. So not a bad sale there. Stevie G 2013 Futera Auto going for $420. We have a 1997 Panini Superfoot Thierry Henry. PSA 9 going for $444 there. That is a discount from what I saw earlier in the Discord. Vintage Discord, I think someone was talking about buying one for close to $2,000, so quite a bit down. Still a really nice sticker, and pop 1 of 4, none higher. So, I mean, if you're looking for early Thierry Henry, that's the place to look. Mia Hamm SI for Kids, PSA 9 going for $444 as well. Then we have the Pele that is definitely Pele, 100% Pele, even though it looks like a much older version of this man who is, I guess, 3 years younger than this man. Totally Pele, definitely not someone else, going for $444 there. So, hopefully the buyer knows that that's not Pele, but I would imagine maybe not the case. I guess if you're a Pele registry hunter, do you still have to hunt it? Eventually, does that get taken out? I don't know. But next to it, PSA 7 Sicker Verlag Pele, the real Pele here, going for $480. Then we have a Lionel Messi. This is the variation from 2018 Topps Chrome. I want to take a peek at it, and basically the highest price ever paid for this was $800. And then we have a $700, a $600, another $600. Realistically, not a bad price. $500 for that pop 1 of 14. Obviously pretty rare. Personally, I think the variations are kind of cool, but at the same time, the market's so in love with colored stuff that it's going to take a lot of convincing, I think, for that narrative to ever sort of change. Above that, 1982 Maradona. This is a Greece football. BGS 9, so high grade, going for $540 there. Pretty decent penny. This one was very disappointing. Actually, one that I even thought about bidding at one point on Sunday, but not really something I'm after, really, which is what I'm trying to avoid. So luckily, stayed true to the guns here. But yeah, this was quite the discount. So CSG here goes for $550 and an 8.5, and SGC 4.5 did almost $300. So double the price, and you're getting 4 grades higher. I mean, that is just a steep discount. PSA 6 lasted $444. And so, yeah, I mean, PSA 8 did $1,200. So I guess, yeah, I mean, any way you slice it, that is quite a low sale. Now, part of it could be, how many people trust CSG grading in a world where, soccer grading's been so rough lately. This is very off-center, and so, you could look at that two ways. You could say, well, that's, a little scary that the card, or I guess sticker, is basically in, gem mint condition other than the centering, but at the same time, if someone were to fake something, are they going to put it that far off-center? Hard to really know, and maybe that's why that plays a role into that going for as low as it did, because there are just so many questions generally you have to ask yourself, and you have to really know the releases at this point to feel comfortable, so it is what it is. $550 for the Baggio there. Next to that, we have a PSA 9 Kylian Mbappe Refractor going for $564. We then have an out of 25 press proof canvas of the, I guess, a PSA 10 also of the 2018 Donruss. So I've never been a fan of these where basically the only thing on it, it just says press proof. You sort of have the same thing in, 2014 Prism with like Father's Day. People don't really care that much. It's still just a base card with an imprint, but obviously people will pay. Then we have a Neymar 2009 PSA 5 going for $630. Want to take a peek at that, so we will do so now. Yeah, $630 for this one. SGC 8 went recently for $1,000. So that SGC 8 looks like quite the deal. I mean, before this, do we have any PSA 5s? I guess I could have gone and looked for them specifically. PSA 6 in February did $430. PSA 5 to $630. That is, okay. I mean, obviously, these are the types of cards that, yeah, they took a hit, but that isn't bad at all. I mean, I'm actually really interested. Was there a 5 that has sold somewhat recently? Can we compare? Last 5 went for $690 in January, so I guess relatively in line. And then 2021 for $1,000. I mean, a 40% dip on Neymar from, all-time highs. That's really not that bad. So pretty impressive. Then we have a Lionel Messi PSA 8 Campeon. So looked this up as well. Usually look up the mid-grade Messis just to sort of see where they're at if it doesn't seem right in line. This one, sort of where it's been, but sort of on an uptrend. This sale is down from the last, $690 to $630. But generally speaking, most of the sales post-World Cup hype have been, I'd say, below $550-ish, other than basically what's been happening lately. So interesting to note there. And as promised, we have the Euroflash 1992 Fabio Cannavaro. I looked that up as well, since it's not something you see every day. This PSA 9 goes for $630. One actually did sell yesterday on best offer for $500 at the same time. I think that's a pop 2 as well, so that's quite weird. But maybe someone just picked them both up if they were interested. I mean, this is basically the highest it's ever sold for, other than, no, I think that is it. There's never been a higher sale, but there's never been a PSA 9 to sell. So I wanted to point out the opportunity maybe flipping from Golden to PWCC, or, sometimes doing it the other way around, depending on what it is. But if you can find the right items and get them to the right people, Golden's more of a, I guess, numbered, modern, higher-end type of platform where people are looking for something to woo them, right? And a PSA 5 Cannavaro isn't wooing anyone. I think PWCC is more of the collector, digging deep, looking for odds and ends type of sales platform. And so, you take a PSA 5 from Golden, sells for $20, you turn around, I'm guessing it's the same one. I don't know. I didn't look into it, but I mean, next week it sells for $186. That can't be the same one because it's too quick. But then a month later, one sells for $100, and you can, almost 5x your money, maybe 10x your money if you're lucky and sort of finding and sniffing. And you can call it luck, or you can find it, skill if you're really just digging into the weeds. But that is I guess that's a poor sale comparatively to some of the other ones we looked at. But generally speaking, still a really cool sticker to have. 2022, this is the Mohamed Salah Color Blast from Prism. $700 there. The Color Blast and the newer inserts that people like, I mean, they seem to hold up pretty well. That's always something I thought that whenever the hobby sort of ran for the hills and everyone freaked out, I thought those would be the first things to fall. And honestly, they've held up relatively well to what I would have thought. So interesting to see. 2018 Pele Patch Auto. So this is a sticker auto, but it does have a game use patch in it from Leaf. So $690, I mean, doesn't feel crazy. I'm not a big Leaf guy. I know most people aren't, but to me, that's actually pretty cool. So $700 there. I mean, between these two, I'd take the Pele any day of the week. We then have another Rivera, not a player or necessarily an era that I'm too familiar on the collectibles, so I can't really dig deep. I would love to. It says Pop 101, looks pretty cool, notable player, all the fun stuff you like to see. $700, so everything sort of checks out, but I can't add too much. Pele 2013, this is a Topps Allen and Ginter with the auto graded only a PSA 10, $750. We then have a 2018 Optic Gold Messi. I mean, I guess it's out of 10, so it has that going for it, but I don't know. I'm never really much of a fan of the insert numbers, and most of the time I think they're just sort of weird and don't really make much sense, and not really something people are chasing, but at the same time, if it's messy out of 10, people are going to pay up. We have a Vinny Kaboom going for 8, 10, and a 10. We then have a PSA 9 2008 Panini Extra Classe Lewandowski. Want to take a peek at that as well, since you don't see these come up all the time. One did sell on best offer yesterday for 800. So again, weird to see stuff selling on best offer the same day a PWCC weekly's going on. I guess maybe someone sees, you know, one go higher and then goes to the other site, maybe picks it up a little lower. I don't know. But PSA 9 before this was 780. This is 840. And I guess generally, when we scroll further back, obviously it's down. Lewandowski not as hyped as he once was at Barcelona at the moment, and soccer in general obviously had a bit of a pullback, but not bad. Seems to be at least decently consistent pricing as of late for Lewandowski. PSA 5 Platini going for 900 there in a top 30%. Always a lovely sticker, but more in high grade than at least was perceived to be the case early on. 2017 Select Kaboom Ronaldo. I want to take a peek at this, sort of in the same realm of what I was talking about earlier with people not wanting to sell these. I mean, this has held up relatively decent as of late. I guess if we look over since the World Cup, it's basically, and this is sort of the thing, I mean, there was a sale for 780 basically as Messi won, or, you know, I guess a couple weeks before that was 900. So this was like an $850 card as Messi's winning the World Cup, and now it's still $850. I mean, nothing's really changed. So it's interesting to see, you know, some cards people run for the hills, sometimes maybe they don't. Now this is down from the highs, but again, how many times do I need to talk about it? That is what it is. 2016 Panini Foot Kylian Mbappe going for 930. Decent sale compared to what we've seen lately. Yeah, okay. I didn't know if I had it pulled up or not. I did. Over the last 6 months, up 20%. I guess this is kind of a low sale, so it looked like it was, you know, decently up after the World Cup. Drops a bit, sort of lulls, and right now, maybe with the transfer rumors and potential, you know, whereabouts moving, maybe that gets some people going, and closing in on 1,000 now. Valderrama PSA 8 going for 930. That's one I also looked up, just because you don't see it that often. The last sale went for 1,400, so down a good bit, but generally speaking, you know, when there's only a pop 1 of 3 and a couple sell within a few months, you're usually going to get more of a deal on the second one, and that just is the way it is. A Kitty PSA 4 Puskás going for near 1,000, basically the most early gettable Puskás. This in a relatively decent grade, pop 1 of 4, just 2 higher. So in terms of that, you know, almost getting as high as you can, really. 1959 Heinerle. This is a very good / excellent SGC 4. This was a low sale and one that, you know, sort of piqued my interest. I've never been, honestly, I'm still really not a 1959 Heinerle Pele guy. I do like the set, generally speaking. Obviously with Pele, you know, you don't have the portrait shot that people would love for him. Instead, you have the sort of in-action shot, but it is an impressive in-action shot. It's still a notable card, surely. This goes for 960. When we look back, it's done, you know, 1,400 in the past. Now, to be fair, that's a newer label, so people might pay for that a bit. But I mean, PSA 4, 1,500. I mean, if we really go to the peak, you know, what is this, 7,000 for a 4 at the peak of the market? So, I mean, PSA 4 at the peak went for 7,000. Now, you know, SGC 4 going for near 1,000. I mean, you know, two totally different ends of the spectrum. And even if we go all the way back, I mean, a BVG 4 was selling for 210 in 2007. A PSA 4 in 2014 was selling for 200. A PSA 4 was selling for near 400 in 2015. So, I mean, you know, that doesn't seem bad to me. Obviously, I guess you look into the card a bit. These corners are pretty worn, but at the same time, I mean, that's what you're going to get with the 4. So it seems like a decent buy. Yeah, I mean, that's really all I can say. Nothing too crazy, at least in my eyes. PSA 9 Zlatan. This is the 2001-2002 Panini Foot. This is the one with the EA Sports FIFA on the cover, so people like this a lot. And this set sort of popped off, and this is a pop 1 of 1, none higher, so that's going to be pretty important. I think I looked this up. Maybe I didn't. So this goes for 990. The other highest sale was 540 for a PSA 8. So relatively, that's about right in line, to be honest. But a PSA 3, I guess, did go for, you know, 225. A 3 did 360, and an 8 in the past did 525. So I guess, all in all, it's basically right in line. But I will say that this is one that you obviously don't get a ton of sales on. Zlatan early on is hard to find stuff of, but I don't know. This sticker sort of, I don't know how to feel about this sticker because I feel like it has quite the narrative amongst people, at least in the Discords I hang out in. And typically when cards have a narrative in the Discords, those narratives go away at some point or another, just from me being around long enough. Now, maybe this, stands a test of time, but I feel like typically if you were, to own one of these, you'd probably want to sell it and get the rookie if you could, but obviously there's a price discrepancy. So I think for a second option, seems pretty cool. As far as this sale in particular, no, really hard to talk about. I mean, it's a pop 1 of 1 going for 1,000, so it's whatever the buyer makes of it, really. If they turn around and sell it next week, it's probably going to go for 500. If they turn around and don't sell it for a couple years and no other PSA 9s pop up or 10s, maybe they have an amazing sticker on their hands. It just, the time has to play itself out, and then we'll see. Going up to this row, we have the GOAT Gio Reyna next to some other notable players, I guess. Here we have a Pele Garincha, PSA 2 Gazetta going for 1,000. Definitely down. I mean, they've continued to kind of go down a bit, but still a decent price for an album cutout. Minor jab completed. Then we have the 2020 Giovanni Reyna Topps Transcendent. This is his first on-card auto, going for 1,000 there in a PSA 1010. Not bad, but also not the last Gio Reyna that we'll be seeing. So these are down a good bit. I mean, they're a little weird, at least for me. They're not ideal in the sense that I do like autos, but Topps Transcendent isn't a set people are actually, really chasing. Also, German back, so, not as appealing, at least from an American point of view. But, of course, first auto, you'll definitely take it. Erling Haaland, PSA 10 going for 1,000, down a little bit. We remember these going for, 12, 13, 1,400 at times, so 1,000 isn't as high. But at the same time, that could be people paying for different back variations, or it could just be, sort of the market doing its thing. Above that, a 1934 Miazza that's surely pretty rare in the sense it's going for 1,100 here and a PSA 1.5, and it's not early career by any means. So, but yeah, a nice pog. I believe this is metal, and we'll also see another item from the same sort of manufacturer here in a bit. Then we have a PSA 6 Molar. We always have to talk about these. Pretty decent price on this one. When we go look at sort of the last price was $810 last month, and already looked this one up basically to see. It had a very clean back. If you look everywhere, I mean, the text is very vibrant. Everything looks to be, in the right place, and so someone paid $810 for what was a very good-looking Jared Moeller. Now this week, or I guess this month, someone paid $1,100, $300 more for what is a terrible-looking Moeller on the back. When you just look at the back from the further out picture we had, everything sort of looked faded. The further in you go, the more it looks faded. So down here, I mean, you shouldn't have this fading, and sort of the problem is with the grading of backs in soccer is they grade based off of paper loss. And so, I mean, at least to me, that looks like, text or maybe paper in a sense is missing. But obviously this gets by a grader. I mean, you can tell sort of where it's glued if you just zoom out a bit. I mean, it looks like there's a spot up there, spot up there, spot here, spot there, spot there. I mean, it's pretty easy to tell. And typically, glued things should grade a 1 or a 2. For some reason, the Bergmans in particular, maybe it's because they come out a bit better in the sense that there's usually not huge paper loss. It's more so a text loss sort of thing, which I would assume is some paper too, but it's a mix. And so, they keep slipping by PSA. And so, I mean, if you're in the market for it, or if you're just, an avid watcher, you have to basically look at all of them and see how it is. And most people aren't going to like to hear that. A lot of people like the grading companies because they're supposed to take the subjectivity out of all of this and make it much easier and more streamlined for the consumer. But realistically, if you're someone that really enjoys collecting cards and the history of the game, I think you should want to do that. Like for me personally, I think that having the ability to go in and look at everything and I think that gives you an edge over the people that don't want to do it. So personally, I like it. I think it's great. But if you're one of these people that's going to buy this, sell it tomorrow, flip it here, I mean, you might not even care. You might buy an absolutely ripped one that's a PSA 6 at a cheap price and then go and hope to sell it at a high price. I mean, so really it depends what you're looking for. But yeah, I mean, those in particular, always be on the lookout. 2006 Cristiano Ronaldo. This is a PSA 10 with a gold label from the 2006 set. Yeah, we'll take a look here. It's not going to be great, just going to warn you. So yeah, this one goes for basically the same price as the last sale, so the gold label almost does nothing at all. Over the last year, down 43%. And I recently saw a post where someone was like, here's the Ronaldo PSA 10, here's the Messi. And my assumption was that they were posting that with the purpose of saying, now that the World Cups happened, Messi's absolutely boomed and Ronaldo's dropped. And so I looked Messi up, And that's actually not the case. I guess when we look over the last year, you know, he's done okay. He hasn't dropped like Ronaldo has, but Messi wasn't even dropping before the World Cup. He's actually dropped since the World Cup a good bit. So it doesn't totally add up. When we go to the 2-year graph, you'll see 10K was the peak for Messi. When we go to the 2-year graph with Ronaldo, we'll see, I guess, 9K was okay. So yeah, I mean, most of the drop, though, seemed to happen pretty steep and quick with Ronaldo, while Messi had the same thing, but then quite a rebound in 2022. So I guess this here is really the difference, the buying before the World Cup, whereas Ronaldo just had continuous selling the whole way. And then in this row, we have 2 Argentine greats depicted here. First off, we have Lionel Messi, light blue laser PSA 10 2018, going for $1,200. 2018 Prism Messi, I mean, it's still fun in the collecting sense. I still think it's a decent set, but at the end of the day, you know, most people are probably going to prefer 2014 or 2022 at this point. You know, debate's always going to come down to 2022, has a ton of different parallels and numbers and all this fun stuff. To each their own. I do think that's a nice looking card, though, with the light blue and a PSA 10. Then we have 2 Gio Reyna, I would say grails. I mean, for Gio Reyna, they're grails. You know, for most people, probably not anything crazy. So we had a gold out of 50 go for $1,500 and an orange out of 25 go for basically the same exact price. You know, if you're a USMNT collector, I'd love to hear your thoughts in terms of which one you would take. Personally, I already have a gold 9, so when both of these came up, I mean, in my mind, I was never really going to go after the gold because I don't really want another gold that bad. And at the same time, I don't really know if I want the orange because personally, I feel like the gold's the better card. So if I'm buying the orange, I'm buying a lesser card. And if I'm doing that, I don't really feel like I'm going to want the out of 99 and the out of 10 and try to put together the whole rain. Like, there's no incentive for me to really do that deep down. So if I don't want to do that, I was basically out of both of these. They were a lot lower actually going into extended bidding. I think they were $700, $800. At that point, maybe I was into the orange, but then they just absolutely roared. These 2 were 2 of the last cards to even end on the auction, which I thought was strange. But good prices there. I mean, in the world where I never get to see USMNT cards on here, fun to see those 2. We have the 1931. This is the same manufacturer that we saw from earlier. I'm not going to zoom in any more than this because I don't want to expose my knowledge. I'm just going to assume there's a Miazza in there somewhere. Or if not, it's just a prominent Italian team. But yeah, someone will probably let me know in the comments. And please do. I would love to know because I've seen a couple of these, at least in the Discord, for my quick research before the video, but not enough to really get a grasp on what exactly this is. But it looks really cool, and in terms of the shape and design, I mean, absolutely unique. So really cool stuff. And then just like that, we go from really cool and unique and absolutely out of this world to, I guess, you know, another red of Messi, reds that will be printed forever. Pop 1 of 1, though, for the time being, $1,500. Son 1 of 1 from 2017-18 Topps Premier League Platinum. We have a holo foil here. Really cool to see 1 of 1s from, you know, an era where 1 of 1s weren't really that cared for, going for good numbers. So 2,100 for the Sun. And then we'll get into the top 9. So, I mean, this row is just 3 hard-hitting monsters right here. So, first off, a 1982 Diego Maradona. You know, a lot of talk recently between 82, 86. Which would you rather have? I think the answer in collecting is always both, if you can. So, this was a huge buy and a huge, you know, sell, or I guess, price for a BGS item, especially one graded recently. So, this was 15.5 mil cert number. So, this was very recent. BGS 9. Now it has a 9 centering, 9 corners, and I think that's an 8.5 surface. So not necessarily a great graded 9, but when we go back and look, when we look at all-time prices, 2,200 is the peak for this. Now there was a PSA 7 that sold for 2,000 on auction. So, you know, price per grade, that's probably the highest sale ever. But this is technically, at least in terms of totality, it is the highest price sale ever. And for a BGS sticker, which is just crazy. Love to see it, or maybe hate to see it, I guess, depending on how you feel about the authenticity of that sticker. Then we have a World Cup Silver Prism for Lionel Messi, PSA 10. So, of course, wanted to give this a peek as well. And, yeah, so this graph, it sort of, you know, encapsulates everything that happened from the rise and the fall. So here, I mean, this is definitely down quite a bit because if you remember, if you were around, this is June of 2020. This card went for 4,500. And really, the Prism boom started to happen in July and August of 2020. So even before the boom happened, the total just craze that occurred, this was worth 4,500. Now it's worth, you know, almost 30%, well, 30% less of that. So that's pretty tough, at least in comparison. Now, I mean, from the highs, it was 10, 11,000, and is now down to 3, which it, doesn't look great, but always within perspective. In 2019, this was a $150 card, and now it's almost 3,000. So you can't lose sight of that. Depending on, I guess most people watching this probably didn't buy any of these, but if you're up here, not going to be great, but maybe there's opportunity going forward, and that is always the question to be had. Down a good bit from the last sale, though, and definitely a situation where just because it's rare and from a good set and a good player doesn't mean it's going up in price all the time. You really have to pick your spots and hope everything works out. Here we have an old graded SGC rookie of Cristiano Ronaldo, 2002 in a 7 grade, going for 3,000. Not a crazy strong sale, but it does feel decent, at least to my eyes. Typically, 8s and 9s in BGS tend to go for 5 to 10K ish from what I've seen. So 3K for a 7 for Ronaldo doesn't seem too bad. Then we have a 1962 PSA 8 higher late Pele going for 3,100, pop 1 of 3, none higher. So if you're a registry chasing Pele guy, that's going to be a huge one. 10 of 10 here, jersey number flawless sapphire, goes for near the same price as the Pele. And then we have a Campione Messi PSA 10 rookie. This actually typically was closer to 4,000, maybe a little bit higher than 4,000. So this is a light sale, I would say. I've been noticing that a lot, though, lately. I think 10s are really taking a beating generally. I don't know if that's just a soccer thing or a market-wide thing, but high grades to me seem to be taking the biggest beating generally. And I'm definitely going to do a video on that soon, sort of taking high grades and comparing them to low grades across many different cards and just seeing how it plays out because, we've all been taught that high grades play out better, but is that the case? I'm interested. This row definitely intrigues me in terms of which one I would want. I guess in terms of just me feeling good about myself, I'd probably take the Pele just because it's pop 1 of 3, none higher. So I feel really good about that. The flawless Messi is cool, but at the end of the day, at one point in time, those weren't massively cared about, and I'm not a huge gem guy. And this is the most common of the Messi rookies, so I wouldn't want that. But I think the higher late is the best one out of the 3. But would love to hear your thoughts down below because obviously everyone's a bit different. With that said, let's get into the top 3, of which is 2 of the same card, all of the same player. Messi just absolutely packed the list here. So he has the top 5 slots alone to himself. When we look at the top 10, he has 6 of them. And then, down here, another Messi. Very Messi-centric as of late, but it does make sense. PSA 7 Messi goes for 4,200. Want to take a peek at that. This one up a little bit from the last couple sales, I guess. Was at a low of 3,000, then 36, 39, 42. Seems to be steadying out a little bit, but we'll see. And generally speaking, a decent sale, not the highest it's been. Did have a decent run there post-World Cup, but on a nice trend line, I would say. Basically even over the last year, despite winning a World Cup, which isn't the best look. But at the same time, I counted this, and there were 25 sales over the last year for something that's a pop 96. So I think that's always going to be problematic and something that, we're running through now with soccer is that you need people ultimately that care for the cards and want to have the cards. You see high grade Messi sell so much more often than low grades. And I think part of that is because a lot of the high grades, sit in investors' hands or flippers' hands a little bit more so. And so you see them come around more. But generally speaking, a pretty consistent trend line there. And definitely a nice Messi. We do have then the Galactic in a 9.5 with a 9 surface going for 5,500. Pop 1 of 3, none higher. Looking at the past sales, I can't find a comp for a BGS 9.5, so instead we have a couple PSA 10s. 8,500 on a 10 and 5,700 on a 10, closer to the peak. So relatively looks really, really good as far as a sale as that goes. 5,500 for a BGS 9.5 with a 9 on the corner. Seems like a quality sale and definitely a nice card as well. And then finishing it off, BGS 9 of the 71 bits as well. Goes for double the PSA 7, so probably close to a PSA 8 price you would imagine. Not too bad, I would say. Decent subgrades, but not the best. 9.5 centering, 9.5 edges, 9 corner, 8.5 surface. But yeah, really good auction. Tons of Messi going. Tons of stuff to talk about. A lot of unique items this week, especially sort of in the pre-modern range. So we'd love to hear your thoughts on anything you might have picked up, sold, thought went too high or low. Always love hearing it. But yeah, that's going to be it for me. If you enjoyed, again, make sure to leave a like. Also, if you want to see more videos like this as soon as I go live, make sure to subscribe. But with that said, hopefully you have a wonderful day, and peace.